I'm starting to see like fall detection software in the rooms. If your mom has declined to take a medication, right? The adult daughter is being alerted on her phone, like this is what's going on, right? So definitely technology is being incorporated into this business, and families are going to have that expectation of like, if I go tour one care home and they're using, I don't know, caring data, which manages, mom's intake, output, her medication. And if something changes or there's been a change in condition, I'm alerted, right?
Welcome to the 𝐓𝐢𝐕 Assisted Living Podcast with your hosts, Charlie Cameron and 𝐓𝐢𝐦𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐦𝐩𝐬. This is your go-to show for cutting-edge insights from industry leaders in residential assisted living.
Whether you're ready to launch your own assisted living business or looking to invest in this fast-growing, high-impact sector, we are here to equip you with the tools, strategies, and confidence you need to succeed. Get ready to ride the silver tsunami and change the future of senior care. Now on to today's show.
Welcome back to today's episode of the 𝐓𝐢𝐕 Assisted Living Podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Cameron, and today we're thrilled to have Christine Sevier joining us today. Christine, how are you?
Fantastic.
Awesome. Really excited to have you because this is going to be a little bit different of a show today. We've traditionally had operators, assisted living home operators on, and you run Creative New Hope Senior Living Advisors, which is a placement agency based in California. So this is going to be really interesting to hear your insights and your view of the industry. So if you would, give us a brief introduction to you and how you got to where you're at, how you kind of transitioned into assisted living, because that story is always interesting.
So Creating New Hope Senior Living Advisors is a placement and referral agency out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're the top referral and placement agency. I kind of stumbled upon this business accidentally, or I say the universe pointed me in this direction. I was, when my mother passed away in 2014, I had to step up to the plate and take care of my grandparents. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, and she probably had Alzheimer's for probably 11 years at that point, but was in still fairly good condition. And my grandfather had renal failure. And I was working as a mental health counselor at John Muir Behavioral Health. So I thought, oh, of course I can help them. I'm fully equipped. I'm working in a psychiatric unit after all. What doesn't prepare you for that? And we lived close by. We all lived within maybe a 3-mile radius of each other. So it was easy for me to, hire the in-home care staff and manage things and take, my grandfather to his dialysis, take my grandmother to the day program at that time. And then it just became a revolving door of different caregivers. They wouldn't show up on the nights or the weekends. So it was me. I was the 24/7, the granddaughter, burning at both ends. My husband was in the military, so he wasn't readily available to kind of jump in and help with the kids at the time. So it was all me 24/7. So it became a lot. And at that point, my grandmother was moderate stage dementia, and it didn't make sense to put her into a larger memory care community because she wouldn't have been able to engage in the activities and everything at that juncture. So she really needed a smaller residential care home. And in California, all of the care homes are managed by the Department of Social Services. And that's kind of where you get your real data. Well, I did like most families do. I went online to search, couldn't find any of these care homes. So I got connected with a place for mom, and they gave me a list. And I got the list, and I was horrified. I would stop in, knock on doors, and check out some of these places. And I was like, no way, no hell, no, never. And I just didn't like any of the places that came on that list. So I went to Department of Social Services, and at that time, the transparency records weren't online. You had to go downtown Clay Street and say, hey, Department of Social Services, give me a list of 10 places within this zip code. And then you would look at their infractions. Do they have a history of bed sores, personal rights violations? Because at that point, my grandmother had been bedridden. So I needed to make sure that this place had good records. And then I found this place that had been licensed since like 1993 and never had a complaint, never had a history of bed sores, anything. She didn't come up on a place for mom list, but she was like 4 blocks from my house, and I had no idea she even existed. So I placed my grandmother there, and my grandmother lived there completely bedridden, no longer communicative. Her food was pureed for 2.5 years, and they took impeccable care of her. She never developed a pressure sore being bedridden. I had a phenomenal experience. So I went back to work, and people came to me and said, hey, how do I find one of those deli care homes? How do I find those people? And then I looked at every single franchise model of this business, and wasn't super impressed. And I thought, well, yeah, I can do this on my own. So I did. And that's when I created Creating New Hope Senior Living Advisors.
Wow. That is an incredible story. And it is interesting to me how so many assisted living stories start with a personal story of mom or dad or grandma and grandpa. And that's incredible that you took the initiative to talk to the state and get the actual list and sift through it and find the right places, go through all those records just to find the right one, which is, for listeners out there, most of that information is public now for most states. But wow, even looking into kind of the history of each home is pretty incredible. And it really speaks to probably how the values that you then took into your current business as a placement agent. So tell me.
But we do this everywhere. Like Charlie, I'm sure. Do you have a wife? Do you have kids?
Yep.
Okay.
Military background, military wife. Yep.
I am sure your wife did her due diligence to figure out what's the school district, what's the best pre-K.
Oh yeah.
Right? What daycare? Let me go find the reviews. Like, right? The adult daughters in the family were looking for the data. And our next generation, my children, are going to be very data rich. So they're going to want to see performance.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So walk me through this. So you start the placement agent business, and how, did you use that list that you created to then develop where you were going to place residents from? And what did that look like?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. I hadn't even known that there was anything other than a place for mom out there. Like I said, I went back to work, and then friends, family, colleagues started asking for help. Like, how do I find one of these care homes? So I would go through Department of Social Services records, pull a list, and then go tour places with my friends and colleagues on the weekend. And then I get a call from a boarding care owner and says, who am I going to pay this referral fee to? And I'm like, you toured the community, but someone else sent me the family's name and referral, because I would go with my clients or my friends at the time and tour communities and kind of help them, Sherpa them through the process and help them ask the right questions. And when the owner of that boarding care called me and said, who am I going to pay this fee to? And I'm like, what? Somebody's actually getting paid to do what I'm out here doing for free? Hold on. So that's when I did my research. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. So then I did my research, and I found all of the franchise models. And then I linked up with a group out of Washington at the time, because if I was going to create this database, what was really important to me was transparency. And was I going to be able to digitally provide the families that I'm working with the transparency link to the Department of Social Services so they could check themselves, right? How many complaints do they have? What's the real data, like pull behind the veil? So when I built my database, that was a key thing that I had to have in it. I had to have the transparency records. And I literally just started door knocking, popping up on to communities unannounced just to see what I could see. Were they going to let me in? Were they skittish? Did the caregiver even speak English when I walked to the door? Right? Like, that's super important, especially if you're going to be taking care of somebody that has dementia. If you can't communicate with them, like, you're automatically off of my list.
Yeah. Wow. So important. And things that a lot of people aren't going to even think to look for when considering which home to place mom or dad in. I want to take a step back for a minute. And for the listeners, there's multiple ways to find residents or clients for your homes. We've talked a number of times on the podcast about having an online presence. So many homes don't even have that, which is kind of mind-boggling, but that's just kind of an endemic of just businesses in general not having online presence. But there's other ways, right? Provide good care. You might get some natural referrals, build a network in the community. But another way is a placement agent. So Christine, why don't you tell us in your words what you do for families and for residents, and what that looks like financially for the families or the homes?
So I always like to say, first to contact, first to contract. A lot of these care homes aren't answering their phones. And when the daughter Judys of the world are stressed out and they got the call, mom broke her hip, you have to find somewhere by Thursday, I answer my phone. So number one, answer your phone. If you don't want to have to pay a referral agent like me, you need to answer your phone. And what I do is I help families with navigating the wide array of care communities, whether it's the big communities, the big box communities, or the smaller communities, and kind of help Sherpa them through the process and to know what questions to ask and to give them a real idea of what this could look like in the future, because I want to make sure that this community can not only meet your current but your future care needs, but also that you can financially sustain mom in that community for a longer period of time, because chances are the average lifespan of anyone moving into a residential assisted living facility is what, 3 to 5 years, right? So let's make sure those funds can last 3 to 5 years. When I'm consulting with families, I always tell them, look, I know this is the beautiful Ritz-Carlton of senior living, but what I don't want to do is I don't want you to have to call me 4 years from now, and now we're going to the Motel 6 of senior living. So be conservative, be moderately priced.
Wow. So,
but I have an entire curated list of that I've curated. Like, if a family is going to go out and tour places by themselves, here's the questions that they should be asking. You know, how long were their call pendant response times? What are some community touring notes? You know, were you greeted? Were the members, like, was the care staff running around frantically because they're stressed out? Were the residents' rooms clean? Do they have a good layout? Do they have all of their licensing signs on the door? So I have an entire curated list of.
So you give them a checklist to work.
I give them a checklist that's basically on the staff. Here's some questions that you should be asking. On the resident's appearance, if I'm going into a memory care community and I see that all of the residents are there disheveled and dirty, and maybe John has one sock on and a different shoe, and just that is a telltale sign of, like, you guys are missing the mark, right? So we're looking at the facility's environment. And then especially with those big communities, I always tell families, you know, I want you to go into this eyes wide open and know that, at least for California, the larger buildings are allowed to staff according to care needs. What does that mean? 1 to 8, 1 to 12, 1 to 16? I don't know. On any given day, I don't know. So my recommendation for families, if your loved one can no longer ambulate or advocate for themselves, you absolutely should be considering a smaller residential care home.
Wow. Okay. That's a question I was going to ask you next, is when would you advise one over the other? You just said a couple of points. Is there any other reasons why, hey, maybe a bigger facility might be a better option for a particular resident?
If you are moderate stage dementia and you're in that tactile phase where you're still wanting to explore your environment, I don't think most residential care homes are equipped for that. So I do think that you should be in a true memory care environment if that's where you are. Now, if you're in a wheelchair and you're dependent on that call pendant button for someone to respond to help you, you should probably be in a smaller setting, just because I worry about those call pendant response times in these larger facilities. While they're great with activities and engagement and going places and, you know, the hustle and bustle of the large community, that is appropriate for a specific person. When you need a lot of support with your ADLs, I really think that you should be in a smaller community.
So you've toured a lot of homes. You have provided your families that are looking to place mom or dad with a really great checklist, or a list of things they should look for when they go into a home. What else is on that list that you haven't said yet? Because a lot of our listeners are going to want to start a home. They're going to want to model after that. And I guess another way to put this might be, what are the homes that you have no problem placing a resident? What do they feel like? What do they look like?
So just in terms of some other lists, let me go over. Does the facility have nurses or CNAs? Are the staff visible and actively engaging with the residents? In addition to English, do they speak any other languages? You know, a lot of times folks that have mild cognitive impairment or dementia, sometimes they'll revert to their native tongue. So I want to know if, you know, Sue goes back to speaking Mandarin, is there anybody in the building that speaks Mandarin? Are the residents well groomed? What do their bedrooms look like? And also, are the staff members, especially for the big facilities, it just bothers me when I'm touring families if the staff just walk into a room without knocking. Like, no, they deserve their dignity and privacy, and you should knock on a door before just popping in. That is his room. And what I particularly like is, look, the reality is, if things are going to happen in these communities, you're going to have a fall, there could be a situation, maybe a med refusal, something's going to happen. It doesn't matter whether it's a large community or a big facility. I mean, a large community or a small facility, things are going to happen. Do you have the full confidence and access to that executive director, that owner, that administrator who will jump into the weeds of things and help sort out a situation? If I have like an owner operator that's not involved and it's like, oh, just let the caregiver know, I don't know that I particularly put my stamp of approval on, you know, an owner that's not actively engaged in his community.
Let's talk about that last part a little bit more. So you mentioned owner engaged and perhaps giving tours. So what is the difference between an effective tour of a home and an ineffective one?
So I literally have a YouTube video a video that I just did for another group on this. And I videoed a real tour of owner that is not involved in the care home, didn't show up to the tour, let the caregiver do the tour, and it is a completely different experience. It feels transactional, impersonal, and the families are like, caregiver opens the door. Oh, okay, you're Judy. You're here to see the room. You're here to see the room. No, we're here to see whether you can take care of my father or not, who I love, who gave his everything to me. I'm not here to just be a bed and a head. So it is a completely different experience versus when you're meeting with the owner operator who's involved that will sit down with you and do a complete discovery process before they even tour the facility with you. I want to know, what's most important to your dad? What does a day in his life look like? What are things that bring him joy, right? At the end of the day, families want peace of mind, and they are willing to pay whatever it is for that peace of mind. So if you want to fill your beds in the $7,000 to $9,000 range, you need to be providing that high-end tour experience.
Gosh, that's such good advice. It comes down to understanding the family needs and meeting that, giving an excellent tour, which usually involves, owner operator involvement rather than just leaving it to a minimum wage or a little better than minimum wage employee, right? What about managers and staff? Have you seen where there's good managers in these homes? That's not
I'm doing this
a good tour,
for 7 years. 7 years I've been doing this and touring communities all throughout the Bay Area. And I've only interacted with one community manager that was able to successfully execute a phenomenal tour and close the deal.
Wow. Man, if that great tour is on YouTube, we will link to it from the show notes because goodness.
I can show you a bad tour and a
to-
good tour. I have a video, but I don't know if I share my screen or.
Yeah, you could certainly do that.
Let's see.
How long are the videos?
It's only like 1 minute. It's just, I can show you what a bad tour looks like and what a good tour looks like. But basically the video would demonstrate when I walk into, so the video basically shows me and my client walking into a community. The care or house manager opens the door, doesn't even ask our name. Is like, oh, such and such sent you here. Oh, come take a look at the room. Versus the other owner who sits us down. He has a whole entire, tea set out with whether she wants any type of snacks or not. He's like, I'm here to provide you with a whole full, concierge experience. It's like if you've ever been to a Hilton, right? You're walking into a Hilton.
Yeah.
Hiltons all smell the same. If you're a Diamond Club member, you have your fancy parking spot. Get your fancy warm cookies. There's a level of hospitality that goes into the process of closing the deal. And with Rumman, that's exactly what he does. And he listened to every advice that I ever given him and executed it to a T. And his homes are full, right? He's making $51,000 a month on one home.
Wow. Okay. So what I heard is not tour, but experience. It's really about the experience and making that family feel comfortable there and really greeting them with the thought that, hey, we're building a relationship to take care of your loved one. And this is not a transactional driven thing.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's so important. It really. Hey there, sorry to interrupt this episode, but I've got a question for you. Do you want to share in the wealth and incredible returns from the highest demand asset class in real estate without the hassle of doing it all yourself, or at least not yet? Residential assisted living is booming and it's only gaining momentum. That's why we created an investment fund at Open Range Capital, so you can benefit without the heavy lifting. With the silver tsunami upon us, demand for assisted living is far outpacing supply, making this the can't miss opportunity for the next few decades. We provide access to fully vetted investment opportunities that are primed for success and ready to deliver strong passive returns. Don't wait, ride the wave with us. Visit theralroom.com/invest to partner with us on future investment opportunities. Again, that's theralroom.com/invest. We look forward to connecting with you. Now back to the episode.
And if you've ever been to a large assisted living facility, they're not going to sit down and talk about prices. They're not going to take you to the room. They're going to have a personalized discovery process in a private room. You're going to move past the clinical data. They're going to invest on getting to know who you are as the adult daughter, who's making these decisions, what brings your dad joy, right? And timing, and really get to connect with the client. It is not going to feel transactional. It is going to feel like almost like a therapeutic process, right? So a flawlessly conducted tour, you're going to have empathy and time, right? The longer you spend with that family, getting to know them, that higher the close ratio is.
That makes total sense. Okay, Christine, I want to walk through the process of quote unquote hiring, right? Because it's really referral basis, but hiring a placement agent before I even own a home in an area, right? So let's say I'm coming to the Bay Area, I'm going to buy a home, right? How do I find you? How do I find a great placement agent who is really putting residents first and is selecting the best homes?
So we're looking, you could find us anywhere, placement and referral agent online. The good ones have great visibility. I mean, you can Google my name, I'm everywhere. But there's also NPRA, the National Placement and Referral Association. So that's a national organization where you can find placement agents in each state. I would definitely start there.
Oh, that's great advice. And so if I called you, okay, Christine, I'm thinking about opening a home or buying a home in such and such an area. How can a placement agent be valuable from that perspective? And do they want to be contacted before you purchase the home?
Well, most referral and placement agents, they probably, unless they're doing the consulting on the side, like I do, I consult new owners on where to buy. But at minimum, you should, before you're even considering purchasing anywhere, you should call a local and referral placement agent and say, hey, what are the rates in this area? Who's the biggest player in the game? Are there high-end communities here? Who would be my biggest competition, right? Like you should do some due diligence on your area. I consulted with the owner this past weekend and they were hoping to get, 7,000, 6,500 to 7,000 per bed. They purchased an existing facility. And I'm like, nobody in that market is going to pay over 45. Like, unfortunately, I don't know what, you bought in a low area. And I say, if you want Whole Foods money, there better be a Whole Foods in that area.
That's a good metric to go by.
No, absolutely.
Whole Foods already did the research.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me about, I found a home and you told me it was a good option for the area and good option in terms of a history. What should I do to make sure that I can continue operating and performing at a level or improving it from there? Are there any tips or tricks as what
do you mean, to like keep beds full or what? To keep beds full from the marketing and advertising?
Keep beds full. Yep.
So here's what kills me is that care home owners don't put the basic business principles into their business. And I'm like, hello, this applies to every business. I don't care if it's a senior business or not. Like, you should be joining your local chambers. You should have an open house. You should be visible online. Like, those basic tenets of a business, like those should be in your business. And you should constantly be bringing people through your door, whether you're full or not. Like, you should continue to tour and have an active waiting list because people will wait for the right community.
That's good. That's so good. Are there anything I need to get from the previous owner before I take over?
This is what kills me. This drives me nuts. Okay. You're going to purchase an existing community and you've done your due diligence. And you're like, okay, this is the best location. Everything's fantastic. I'm going to buy it. No problem. And you don't include the former owner's phone number in the sale and the transaction of that business agreement. I mean, you just shot yourself in the foot. Because that phone number is where the hospitals, the discharge planners, the geriatric care managers, the home health agencies, and the hospice agencies have been calling for the last 10 years. Not the phone number to the facility, right? Wherever those calls are going to the owner, right? You call a facility right now, the caregivers answer the phone. Oh no, this is the phone to the house. Call the owner. Her number is, you need that phone number. You need that phone number. So there's the continuity in those relationships that have been built over the last 10 years.
That's such a good tip. That's such a good tip that we haven't heard before as well.
Yeah, and answer the phone, right? First to contact, first to contract. If you don't want to pay my fee, answer the phone.
Yeah, I used to run a pretty busy real estate team, and it's the same thing. It's funny with real estate agents. So many get into the industry and think that somehow just people are going to fall out of the sky as clients. And so many aren't willing to pick up the phone or even answer the phone. It's crazy. Like, nope, pretty much in any business, especially this one, you're going to have to pick up the phone if you want to be successful. And if you can't do it, then hire somebody who can pick up the phone, okay, on your behalf that you could call back at a convenient time.
Yeah, and
can you share any pivotal moments?
Well, I'm glad you said something about the real estate side. So what it takes to keep your beds full. So a lot of owner operators, they think, oh, we're just placement and referral agents, that we are just on these fancy hospital lists and that's how we get business. That's 20% of our business. Okay, 20% of our business comes from the hospital, right? Then the skilled nursing facilities. The rest of our business is coming from outside sources. So just like if you ran a real estate team and you were teaching them how to farm their market, how to beat the streets, how to market and network and build relationships in the community, so you had a flow of people that were interested in buying or selling. That is the same thing a successful placement and referral agency will do. We just pivoted that whole entire business model to the healthcare side. So we're going to the assisted living communities. We have advisory boards with the senior centers, right? So we're constantly farming our market, but on the healthcare side. And that's what it's going to take to keep your beds full.
I think, and that's so awesome. And because a lot of these operators, I'm sure, are probably too busy to do many of those things themselves. Yes, they would love to, ideally, but to operate a home well and to do all the networking, I mean, that's going to take a lot of time. So some folks, I mean, just being blunt, poo-poo placement agents and placement agencies. However, you can easily make this an integral part of your occupancy business model to ensure you're staying full when you don't have the time to do all the things. Certainly, there's an ROI there that absolutely makes sense.
And would you rather pay a sales and marketing professional for your business a yearly salary, workers' comp, insurance, blah, 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 or pay someone like me a one-time fee?
Yeah. And I think there's a level where, hey, maybe it makes sense to build a marketing team, but it's not with one home. And it's probably not with 2 or 3. It's probably with quite a few, maybe a dozen, at the point where you're like, okay, now I need my own marketing team. And but even so, you probably still have placement agents who are going to refer to you from time to time. Christine, about the kind of money piece, what is the rate or the cost when you place a senior in a home?
So usually it's anywhere from 75 to 85% of the first month's board and care. If you were to list your business on a place for mom, you'd be paying 150%. And you'd probably have a ton of dead leads, right? We're vetting people. We're making sure that they can afford this level of care that the cost, right? We're making sure their budget. Families are a little more open about budget with us than they are care owners. And we're making sure, right, they have their documentations to support a smooth transition. Like in California, you have to have the 602 physician's report and a clear TB test. So we're supporting families with getting that documentation done, whether it's with a virtual physician or otherwise. So we're truly sherpering the family through the entire process.
That's awesome. It's not just, hey, here's the list, good luck, right?
Yeah.
It's so much more than that. And I think a lot of the negativity that comes with placement agents is that first piece, here's the list, good luck, send me my check, right? And versus what you're doing is an entirely different, it's an experience. Like we said, you're delivering an experience for the families that's really helping them get comfortable with the options you're giving them, which is good for the home owners, because anybody you refer to them is already kind of prepped. They're already preparing for an experience. And then when the home delivers that experience, ultimately that's going to close the deal.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, families want peace of mind and they want to trust you. So you only have that tour experience to create that trust and to build, rapport with the family.
Yeah. You have that first impression.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a lot about some of the things that have made your business successful in the past few minutes. What's one of the biggest challenges you had while doing this, or you have had, and how did you solve that? Anything come to mind?
COVID was particularly challenging. I've seen a lot of placement and referral agents list their business for sale during that time. And I just used it as an opportunity to double down on my business. So if you follow me on social media, you'll see that during the pandemic, when you couldn't get into anywhere to network or market anything, I had custom piñatas made of the coronavirus. And I said, we're beating the COVID together. And I delivered these piñatas full of my marketing material and candy to every hospital and skilled nursing facility and assisted living facility within a 20-mile radius of my home. And I would have the nurses send me videos, and they went viral of just the nurses beating COVID with a bat. It was hilarious. But business was slow during that time. And rather than, say I'm just going to go hide in the ditch somewhere, I doubled down on my business. And a lot of more families sometimes there'll be families they'll just say, I don't care what it costs. I'm going to stay in the big facility no matter what. Right. During that period, families were open to the smaller setting. So new owners that were coming online and only had the 1 or 2 residents, I filled those places up quick during COVID.
Wow. Okay. I heard something that I think applies to every business ever, which is when times are tough, double down. I mean, when everybody else was exiting the industry, you were going full bore. And the same thing's happening to real estate agents recently, by the way. But that's awesome. And the fact that you had the piñatas made,
Yeah.
For business owners out there, you got to get creative. That's your opportunity to take the market share. Because you did that, that probably doubled your business in the following years, would be my guess. You stuck around and you doubled down, which is awesome. There's this analogy of climbing a mountain in business, right? Like most people quit when it starts to get really hard. It gets a lot steeper. The altitude, the air is getting thinner. It's getting harder to breathe. Things are hard, right? Things are always hard right before you round the peak and everything gets downhill, because now you can hire people to take the hard tasks off and you can really focus on the things you're most passionate about. And now your business can really, really, really grow. But most people quit while walking up that mountain before they ever get to the peak. And what you did is you said, let's screw this. I'm not walking. I'm grabbing my mountain bike and I'm going to ride the rest of the way up, which is pretty intense way to go about it. But like, that is what it takes to be successful in any business, is to not just continue when things get hard, but to double down. So I think that's a great lesson. Okay, couple last questions. What's the biggest mistake you see new assisted living home operators make, since you encounter a lot of them, and how might they avoid that?
Purchasing in the wrong area. I see folks that will like get into this business. I'm like, well, the real estate is cheap there. And I'm like, okay, well, did you do your due diligence on the demographics? Yeah. So if you're thinking you're going to get $6,500 per bed and the average retiree in that area makes 45, like, good luck. So purchasing in the wrong area, and then having this sense of, this is a passive income business. No, if you are hoping to keep your beds full, you need to be involved in your business. I have yet to see owner operator, actually maybe 5-10 years into the business, right, really get to set those expectations and know this business like the back of your hand. Then you can hire an administrator who can manage it all for you, but you definitely have to be involved.
Yeah, I think that's so great. And there are different levels to this model. For example, we got started leasing to operators, and that's, as far as real estate goes, pretty passive, as long as you have the right operator that can do exactly what you're saying, which is not necessarily an easy task either. But definitely, you want to build a business, you got to be involved, you got to build the relationships. And then by doing the thing, right, then you know how to hire the right people to do it for you. That's what my first day in real estate, I bought 8 apartments and I self-managed because I wanted to understand what that felt like and what it would take to do it well, so that I could best hire people in the future, which, I hired after that. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. You got to cut your teeth in it and understand it so that you can best position yourself for growth.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as like market trends, with the silver tsunami upon us, as we call it, what do you see the industry or model evolving or growing into in the next 5 to 10 years?
Definitely, the big box communities, they're able to build that rapport and confidence immediately because they have technology, right? They have their automated and different technology. I'm starting to see like fall detection software in the rooms. If your mom has declined to take a medication, right, the adult daughter is being alerted on her phone, like, this is what's going on, right? So definitely technology is being incorporated into this business, and families are going to have that expectation of like, if I go tour one care home and they're using, I don't know, Caring data, which manages, mom's intake, output, her medication. And if something changes or there's been a change in condition, I'm alerted, right? And then I go to the next care home and they don't have that. I might think differently. I kind of like that feature, so I can kind of keep tabs on what's going on.
That's really good. That's not a tip we've heard before, but definitely, I mean, there's so many cool things available now. Like we just spoke to a team that does incontinence monitoring, right? Which is a big freaking deal. You need to keep residents dry, right? To prevent infections and other things. And that can be a big discriminator. Having those additional pieces in your business, I think small care homes need to be thinking about this.
Oh, for sure.
And hopefully soon, instead of all these disparate pieces, it's like having too many, Netflix and Amazon Prime subscriptions, right? There's so many different things now that you can go pay for. Hopefully soon, somebody will get smart enough to package them all together.
They have.
Maybe you and I
Majestic
we'll
Residence.
figure that out.
Majestic Residence.
Oh, yeah. Yep, Chuck. Yep. I know Chuck. Yeah. And a lot of times franchises will have something like that. And there's definitely more that can be done for small care homes. And it's going to set you above. And even if you think about it, like, okay, demonstrating technology is one thing, but think about the care of the residents and how much longer they could potentially live by implementing the right things. Isn't that important?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Christine, before we go, what's something you're working on right now that you're passionate about? Could be senior living related, could not be. What are you passionate about at the moment?
So I have been doing a fair amount of consulting with new owners on the sales and marketing side. That's really been fun for me because that's what I love to do the most in my business. So that has been fun. And yeah, I mean, I just hanging out with my kids and my family. That's about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, me too. Okay, Christine, if someone's looking to own a home or owns a home in the Bay Area, what's the best way for people to learn more from you and reach out to you?
So they can get a hold of me by social media, Christine Sevier. I'm everywhere, Facebook, TikTok, everywhere. Or look me up online at creatingnewhope.org.
Awesome. And for the listeners, Sevier is spelled Sevier. They can look you up on social.
Perfect.
Christine, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been incredibly insightful. So thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure learning from you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to the Raw Room Assisted Living Podcast. We hope you found today's episode insightful. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave us a raving 5-star review. And a quick review helps more listeners find the show and more seniors get the exceptional care they deserve.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And just so you know, we have prepared some free resources for you to help you succeed in residential assisted living in addition to this podcast. Head over to theralroom.com, that is theralroom.com, to download our free 10-step guide to launch your first or next residential assisted living home, or our 10 reasons to passively invest in residential assisted living ebooks.
And if you're ready to take the next step and make real moves in the RAL industry, join us in the RAL Room Mastermind. It is an exclusive community where we deep dive into everything you need to launch and grow your own residential assisted living business. You'll get access to recorded courses, live calls with industry experts, a RAL calculator, resources and tools, like-minded entrepreneurs, funding opportunities, and an expert networking community to help you along your journey.
Be sure to join us next time on the RAL Room Podcast as we continue to explore the world of residential assisted living with more great guests. See you then.